morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we are continuing our look at the rotation and everything you need to know about it. And today, we're going to be having a look at Forbidden Light and all the cards that are going to be leaving. We are obviously going to start the video with the big losses, the things you should be really concerned about. But we will then go through all the fringe cards and cards that used to be good and all of that. So you've got a really good look at everything we're losing. And unlike some of the sets we're losing, there's quite a few big cards being lost from Forbidden Light. And we might as well start off with one of the very biggest of them. It's Malamar. Malamar's got an ability that lets you attach a psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon once per Malamar per turn. And this was a great ability when we used it with Bronzong. And it was a great ability when we used it with Electric. And if it comes out in the future on another Pokemon, it will probably be a great ability on that Pokemon as well. It has single-handedly made and kept alive a lot of Psychic decks since it came out. And frankly, prepare for Psychic to be a lot less good moving forward because of Malamar. Although while we're here, we're also losing Mysterious Treasure. And Mysterious Treasure is something that you can use to search out your Psychic Pokemon. Also Dragon, but it's not really used for that at the moment. Yeah, Psychic decks just got worse. As did Fighting decks because of Diancie Prism Star. Diancie Prism Star sits there and lets all of your fighting Pokemon do an extra 20 damage during your turn. It was an instant automatic one-of in every fighting deck, and a lot of fighting decks are now going to struggle to hit the numbers because of it. Now, one which is a big loss now, but would not have been a big loss a couple of months ago, say 4 months ago, is Florges. Maybe 6 months ago. But either way, Florges has the ability Wondrous Gift that lets you once during your turn flip a coin, and if heads, put an item card from your discard pile on top of your deck. And this was basically terrible, unplayable garbage right up until the moment that Lily's Pokédoll came out in Cosmic Eclipse, which is an item card that functions as a 30 HP Pokemon that doesn't give up a prize. And that has become a serious contender nowadays, because you can use Florges to continually reuse it, and then your opponent just doesn't take prizes. Yeah, that entire deck's gone away now. Now, Ultra Beasts are also losing a lot. They're losing Beast Ring. That is the card that if your opponent has 3 or 4 prize cards remaining, you get to search your deck for 2 basic energy and attach them to one of your Ultra Beast. That gives speed and consistency that is sorely lost. Of course, we're also losing Beast Energy from this set, which is any energy but also lets you do an extra 30 damage, and Ultra Spacer Stadium that lets you search them out. And frankly, Ultra Beast just got a lot worse. They've lost consistency, they've lost energy acceleration, they've lost damage, plus a lot of the Ultra Beasts themselves have rotated out. It's not looking ideal. Now, we have lost Judge, and I'm putting it down amongst the big losses because it has seen a huge amount of play. Both players shuffle a hand into their deck and draw 4 cards. But it's actually been almost entirely replaced by Marnie, the only difference being that in Marnie, the player who plays her gets an extra card, and also that you put them on the bottom of your deck, not shuffle them into your deck, such that you cannot redraw the cards you just put back in. So don't worry too much about Judge. But do worry about Metal Frying Pan if you're a metal player. Metal Frying Pan reduces damage done by 30, but then again so does Metal Goggles, and that's not being rotated. But Metal Frying Pan also takes away your weakness. Yes, you can use Weakness Guard energy, that's surviving the rotation, but come on, it's nowhere near as good. Zacian decks are amongst the best around at the moment, and Metal Frying Pan is a huge loss. Now, still on the big losses, but maybe just a tier down, we're losing Buzzwole. It was another pretty much automatic one-off inclusion in every fighting deck, because if your opponent had 4 prizes remaining, you did 120 for a single energy. Although Buzzwole with cards like Shrine of Punishment actually did have a very good showing at Worlds a couple years ago as its own standalone deck. Palkia GX is being rotated, and that sucks, because Palkia comes along and it's got a rather redonkulous GX attack that does 150 damage and shuffles all of your opponent's energy from all of their Pokemon back into their deck, which is kind of a little bit dumb. And we've now got Frostmoth, who can accelerate the energy onto there fairly easily. I didn't mention this back in the Ultra Prism video, because the water one from this Forbidden Light set is better, but they're both being rotated out, and it's a little bit sad. And Naganadel GX, a card I'll always have a soft spot for free energy, bearing in mind triple acceleration will now just pay it in one go. You just reset both players to free prizes. Yeah, people took advantage of this quite nicely. Now, there are some cards here that used to be cool, cards that used to see a bunch of play but don't anymore. There was a period of time where Frogadier and Greninja were really quite good. Frogadier, you evolved up and dropped 2 damage counters, and Greninja GX, you evolved up and dropped 3 damage counters. Though Greninja did see a bit of love for its attack that did 110 and shuffled it and all cards attached to it into your deck. It was nice for getting extra energy on the field. It hasn't been played for a while as far as I'm aware, but it was cool for a while. Volcanion Prism Star, honestly I think this has gone away because water decks haven't been good. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, should be a one-of in every water deck. Free energy, 100 to the active, 20 to each of your opponent's bench, adds up very quickly. But it's also got a really nice attack that lets you discard a water energy from your hand and makes your opponent switch their active Pokemon. Was better when we had Aqua Patch, discard the energy of Volcanion, accelerate it with Aqua Patch, but still a very cool card for a while. Now, we also had Garchomp. It was a lovely card that let you do a lot of damage if you played a Cynthia on the previous turn. Now, this is another card that was actually in Ultra Prism and in Forbidden Light, but the fact that this was a fighting Pokemon made it quite a bit better. People tried it, people liked it, but it never proved to be particularly good. Speaking of which, how about Zygarde GX? Now, Zygarde GX was a very nice card, and don't forget we also got, and then lost in this set, Bonnie, that lets you use your GX attack as much as you want, and it was really quite a good card. 2 energy, 50 damage, and attach 2 fighting energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon, 4 energy, 130, and 4 energy, 150, and it made it immune to EX and GX Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. This was all the rage for a little while and people tried to use it, but unfortunately it was underwhelming in the long run, shall we say. One that really was good for a long time was Ultra Necrozma GX. Now, this actually fit quite nicely with Malamar, though you would have to play some metal energy to make it work. But you did 20 damage base, discarded all basic psychic, and then did 80 more for each one discarded. And for a while, this was the go-to psychic deck. But then people started playing non-GX decks with stuff like Giratina. In recent months, Mewtwo and Mew has been really good with Malamar. And we ended up with this card that for a long time was really good with Malamar, and then kind of disappeared on the face of the earth and never came back. And one card that I absolutely love on a personal level was Arceus Prism Star. Now, this had the ability that you prevented all effects of attacks other than damage done to this Pokemon, but for a single colorless energy you did 30 damage, and you could only use it if you had a water, grass and lightning Pokemon on the field. But then you search your deck for up to 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Well, there was a grass-type Pheromosa, which was a basic that had free retreat. And we could play it with Tapu Koko, who was a lightning type basic with free retreat. And then you would play it with White Kyurem to do 160 damage, and it would actually work out really nicely. This was quite popular for a while, and then it went away never to be seen again. Now, in terms of fringe cards, these are ones that saw a little bit of play here and there, people tried to use but never worked, etc. There was an Alolan Executor, 1 grass energy, 20 damage base, plus 20 more for each type of basic energy in your discard pile, but you couldn't add more than 100 damage in that way. This was one that a lot of people tried to use, and it seemed like it was going to be so good, and then it never worked. Just did not end up being good. Sorry. Though good news about this card, if you don't mind playing a dragon type rather than a grass type, which is nowhere near as good incidentally, but if you don't mind, it actually got reprinted in Team Up as a dragon type and will survive the rotation, so that's some good news. I mentioned the Pheromosa a moment ago, basic grass Pokemon, free retreat. It didn't just see play for that, although that was a lot of the time why it did. But free energy, 90 damage, 180 if you've only got 1 prize remaining. It was at least a pretty good closer. Delphox was a card I was personally extremely fond of. Delphox just let you burn your opponent's active Pokemon. To be fair, it only ever really worked in Chandelure decks. Now, Chandelure will survive the rotation. It just lets you do 10 damage, discard the top 5 cards of your deck, 60 more for each Pokemon discarded, any fire can go straight onto your bench. So certainly Delphox worked quite nicely in that regard. We did have a Magnezone that let you attach as much lightning energy as you like during your turn. People tried to use it with a bunch of different things, but just like the Metal Magnezone, it never proved to be particularly good, unfortunately. Xurkitree was actually quite a nice basic single energy attacker. For 1 lightning energy, 20 damage plus confusion. It's not going to win a huge amount of games by itself, but as an early game attacker or a lightning type Ultra Beast, it did the job quite nicely. Now, there was a Rotom in this set as well, but really we covered the Rotoms quite nicely in the previous video, so I'm going to let you go check that one out if I'm honest with you. Rotom! Now, we also had Yveltal GX. Now, Yveltal GX is actually making a bit of a comeback. Now, the only reason we really like this is 1 Darkness Energy, instant KO on anything with 4 damage counters on. But nowadays, a bunch of people are playing Obstagoon, which lets you drop 3 damage counters. And Zigzagoon, that lets you drop 1 damage counter. And actually, that adds up very, very nicely to 4 damage counters, and then you get to just win the game. Or at least get 1 big KO. It was cool. In fact, it still is. Your Obstagoon decks are going to miss this. Xerneas GX was also a really nice one-off in a bunch of fairy decks. Not anymore, fairy decks have not been relevant. Cheers, Zacian. But 1 energy, 20 to the active, 20 to one of your opponent's bench. Or 3 energy, move all damage counters from each of your Pokemon to your opponent's active. Hopefully getting a big KO while completely healing all of your Pokemon. You can see why it went in as a one-off. And a card that a lot of people looked right past, but I actually saw a weirdly large amount of play in its own right, was Goomy. Like actual Goomy, not the evolutions, actual Goomy. As long as it's active, your opponent's Pokemon's attacks cost 1 colorless energy more. Combine it with Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star, so your opponent has to pay 2 more energy, and then they're really in a bit of trouble when they're trying to attack. Ha! Bought you some time quite nicely. Now, in terms of other trainers, we need to talk about Crasher Wake. Is one that I've always expected to be good, never turned out that way. But 2 water energy discarded from your hand lets you search your deck for any 2 cards. There's so much potential. Diantha is a card that sees a bit of play here and there, but certainly sees play in Granbull decks. It just lets you, if you had a fairy Pokemon KO'd the previous turn, grab any 2 cards from your discard pile and put them in your hand. That's pretty huge. Porter is one of the very few cards I'm not sure I've ever seen played. Lets you move a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of their Pokemon. And it's nice to be able to mess around with their special energy, but is it really worth playing an item card for? Most of the time it was not. Fossil Excavation Map was kind of a fun one. It let you either search your deck for an unidentified fossil and put it in your hand, or put an unidentified fossil from your discard pile into your hand. Good for consistency, but honestly, right, now that we've got Pokemon Research Lab, it's hard to imagine anyone really trying to go down this route when you could just play Pokemon Research Lab. Sorry. Lady let you search for any 4 basic energy, and it didn't see a huge amount of play, but in decks that could attach a lot, it did get teched in here and there. Lysander Prism Star was a really fun tech that not enough people played as far as I'm concerned. It just let you, for each of your fire Pokemon in play, put a card from your opponent's discard pile into the Lost Zone. So with a full bench of fire Pokemon and a fire Pokemon in the active, you're literally Lost Zoning 6 of your opponent's cards. That's kind of ridiculous. Also Lysander Labs, which does see a bit of play here and there. It turns off Pokemon tools. Although, to be honest with you, a lot of the time the best use for this has been turning off a skateboard to leave Jirachi stranded in the active, and a skateboard has rotated out. Ultra Recon Squad is just one more thing that Ultra Beasts have lost, although to be fair it's seen next to no play. Just let you discard up to 2 Ultra Beasts from your hand and draw 3 for each card discarded in this way. It's fine. And we lost the final of the unit energies here. The one that was fighting Darkness and Fairy. It's alright. I mean, look, very simply, if you found a deck that needed more than one of these typings, it was brilliant. Otherwise, leave it at home. The other 2 came in Ultra Prism. This completed the set. Though, like I said in that video, previously we had Blend Energy, and because there was no Fairy at the time, we had 2 cards with 4 on each, rather than 3 cards with 3 on each, which is what Blend Energy had that made it so much better. And finally, Energy Recycler. Now, this is a little bit sad. It actually only got kept in the format because it was a secret rare in Forbidden Light. Otherwise, it would have rotated out last time. Shuffle 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. In terms of getting a lot of basic energy back using an item card rather than a supporter, it was actually a really nice card that was really quite good. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. All the cards you need to know about that have been lost from Forbidden Light. Not quite as many cards as some of the other sets we're going to mention, but certainly a very top-heavy set. And when you're talking about stuff like Malamar, Diancie, Metal Frying Pan, these are cards which are going to really make a difference, and a lot of decks are going to be significantly weaker by virtue of these cards going away. But now it's over to you guys. I want to know which of these cards you're going to miss the most. I want to know if there's any cards from this set that I've not mentioned that you think I should. I want to know if there's any cards from this set that I have mentioned that you think I shouldn't. Go nuts in the comment section, but please remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, or you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.